Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our public comment session. Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilman Hobbs.
Here.
Councilman Moffitt.
Present.
Councilwoman Sneed.
Present.
Councilman Stewart.
Here.
Councilman Tuck. Vice Mayor Wallace. Mayor Ward.
Here. Good evening, everyone, and once again, welcome. The very first citizen I have to sign up to speak is Catherine Dermanis. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Gasparis-Dermanis, and I live at 1668 North Mallory Street in Buckrow, and I'm currently the president of the Buckrow Improvement League. Last May, the Buckrow Improvement League sponsored its third annual Buckrow Arts in the Park. We brought back the arts back to Buckrow. We used to have that event many, many years ago. And the Arts in the Park was never intended to be a moneymaker, but it was intended to bring positive, family-focused events to the Buckrow area. But we could not have had a successful event this year without the cooperation of the Parks and Rec, Jim Wilson, Cindy Masterstaff, the neighborhood office of Jonathan McBride and Sabrina Carr, the police department, the sheriff department, and the Buckrow Fire Department. We thank all of them for helping us to have this event and to maintain this event year after year. We hope that it continues and becomes a tradition. Our next event is a school supply drive at Buckrow Park, Saturday, August 18th, 9 a.m. to 12. We are trying to fill a truck of school supplies to take to the neighboring schools to help our children. Thank you again, and the Buckrow Improvement League looks forward to working with the city in future events.
Thank you so very much. We appreciate that. And that is indeed a hard-working group of people. The next citizen sign-up to speak is Reverend Harris. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, and City Attorney, City Manager. I am Marcellus Harris, Reverend Harris, and I have foregone my prayer service tonight to be here. Just thought I'd get that on the record for a higher power. And I'd also like to say good evening to the new council, people I haven't had a chance to greet or to come before with any particular city matters. I am here tonight on behalf of the Coalition for Justice for Civil Rights. We had come rather prepared to make a report and some recommendations, but because of some unfolding events and some very important urgent issues that are complicating that matter, we have decided to defer our report and recommendation until the ad hoc committee meets before this council about its findings. But we are prepared tonight to suggest to you that we would like to have you have our city police chief, Chief Jordan, to step aside in the midst of some of these investigatorial issues and have, I think it's Major Charles, what's his name, Major Ronald Davis, to be appointed acting city police chief in the interim period. And after the ad hoc committee has made its report, we then will give you some additional information about our reports and our recommendation. I have with me some of the members of the Coalition for Justice, so I'm here as the kind of the spokesperson for what I'm presenting to you. Are there any questions? Y'all look befuddled.
We thank you for being here. If you've got a few more minutes or another minute if you'd like to say anything else.
Well, I would like somebody to at least accept what we're saying or respond to what we're saying in that fashion. Is this not the time for that to happen?
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, Mr. Harrison, I didn't have the clerk read the protocol for the meeting, and I apologize, but we usually don't do a give and take during
I'll close with
time.
that, and a very special good evening to everyone.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. The next citizen signed up to speak is Scott Butler.
Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of Citizens for Fort Monroe National Park regarding the resolution which is up for a vote tonight on Hampton's position on the reuse of Fort Monroe, the Wary Quarter in Fort Monroe. If approved, this resolution would be a huge step forward in promoting a grand public place at Fort Monroe to the long-term cultural and economic benefit of Hampton and the region. The resolution emphasizes the appeal of Fort Monroe's natural and recreational resources. It states the community's desire to, quote, establish a large-scale open space park. As amended this afternoon, it supports a significant green connection and viewshed protection between the two parts of Fort Monroe National Monument. And it acknowledges the existence and the crucial role of the monument when it says that any use of Wary should be, quote, complementary to the National Park Service plans, goals, and objectives. In all these ways, the resolution supports the public's clear choice of a green open space Wary. CFMNP's ultimate preference would be for an outright declaration that all or most of Wary should be incorporated into the National Monument, and we will continue to advocate for that outcome. This is the only way Wary will be protected in perpetuity from development that diminishes Fort Monroe's appeal to visitors. Even if the Fort Monroe Authority, following the resolution's guidance, were to limit Wary development to what is complementary to the National Park Service plans, as the resolution says, some future FMA board might decide to ignore these limitations. But our goal aside, we certainly recognize the significance of this resolution. It points the FMA in the right direction, that is, toward what the public wants for Fort Monroe and what is best for Hampton and the region. If it is approved, this will be a proud day for the Hampton City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. The next citizen is Mr. Bassett. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Hugh Bassett. I'm representing the Old Northampton Community Organization, and we would like to bring you thanks from the criminals, thugs, and hoodlums in Old Northampton, because the police, I guess it's a substation or whatever you call it, sub-precinct that was in a Langley shopping center, is now closed. And when it was brought up at our meeting, I thought that it was going to remain open. So now we don't have as much police presence in Old Northampton as we previously had, because that substation provided a lot of the service. So the crooks now have a little bit more time to get away with their criminal activity. And we spoke out asking that it be kept open before, and for some reason it wasn't. But we just would like to pass on that we were highly upset when we found out that it was going to close, because we want as much police presence in Old Northampton as we can possibly get. And so that means that now the lag time is going to be a little bit longer. And maybe later on when you get a little bit more money or whatever the reason was, you might want to reopen that, because it makes a lot of difference as far as police responding to crime or police responding to calls. So now they're going to have to come from further away. So like I say, the criminals, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bassett. Mr. Casparillo. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Casparillo. I live at 100 Wilderness Road in Hampton and beautiful Willow Oaks. Maywood, California. Remember that name. When candidates run for council, they are often asked what could be done to keep people from leaving Hampton or to make sure people move to Hampton. One thing that will surely not enhance any endeavor is a memorial in front of the city's bus station, across from its courthouse, and in walking distance from its police station and its city hall. A memorial that is dedicated to an unarmed young man who was shot and killed by one or more Hampton police officers. Sadly, there have been other police shootings that have occurred under, to be kind, less than comforting circumstances. What makes the most recent shooting so concerning is that, according to reports and quotes from the HPD itself, the young man was carrying only a baseball bat and the officers were unequipped and or untrained. The cost of training was reported to be $50 per year. Let's say that each of the 277 officers is required initial and annual training. That's a per annum cost of $13,850. The average cost of a 10 million volt stun gun is $100. That's $27,700 for 277 police officers. Now, I'm not sure what the effect of a 10 million volt stun gun is, but I know I drop a baseball bat. The cost of fully training and equipping 277 officers is $41,550. The report also says the incident took less than 20 seconds. Regardless, there was enough time for a second officer to respond. So basically, a management decision was made that it was not worth the $41,550 and the 20 seconds of time it would have taken to save the life of Bryant Weifert. You may not think this is a moral issue, but you should. You may not think this is a values issue, but you should. You may not think this is a civil rights issue, but you should. Now, what about Maywood, California? In July of 2010, the city laid off its entire workforce, including the entire police department. Revenue had declined, but Maywood's biggest problem was by far its police department. There were $19 million in claims pending against the police, which made it effectively impossible for the city to get insurance for any of its employees. If Maywood did not dismiss the workforce, officials said bankruptcy would have been the only option. Even if you don't have the heart to look at this as a moral issue, or the soul to look at it as a civil rights issue, you damn well better have the brains to look at it as a financial issue. God help us all if you don't. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Casperello. Next is Mr. Boone, and then Mr. Brombeck.
My name is Edwin Boone. I reside at 48 Snow Street. Acceptable forms of ID for voting in Virginia. All voters are required to show one form of ID in order to vote a regular ballot in Virginia. One of the following IDs: Virginia voter card or Social Security card or valid Virginia driver's license. Note, licenses expiring within 30 days before Election Day will be considered valid for use as voter ID or concealed weapons permit. Any other ID issued by a government agency of the Commonwealth of Virginia, including a public college or university in Virginia, or one of Commonwealth's political subdivisions, counties, cities, towns, etc., or the United States, or any valid employee ID card containing a photo and issued by the voter's employer in the ordinary course of business. For a first-time voter that registered to vote by mail or through a third-party registration group, one of the following IDs: a current and valid photo identification, such as valid Virginia driver's license, employee photo ID, or student photo ID from a Virginia public high school or an institution of higher learning, or passport, or a copy of one of the following current documents containing the voter's name and address: a utility bill or bank statement or a paycheck or government check or other government document that including a Virginia voter card or a document from any federal, state, or local government agency. If you do not show an ID when you go to the voter to go vote, you can vote provisional. You have up to 3 days after the election to turn in your ID. You have to make a copy and take it to the registrar's office. They will not make copies for you. And the registrar's office is located at 1919 Commerce Drive, Suite 280, Hampton, and the telephone number is 727-6218. All active voters will receive a voter card towards or the middle of September. The deadline for registering to vote is October the 15th, 2012. This is the most important election of our lifetime. Right now, and I'm 57, and there's no guarantee I'll be living the next 4 years to be 61. I voted the last election, I voted most elections, and we need to get it right and get off our couches and do what's right by yourself, and don't be complaining and talking about how we're going backwards. Get out and vote and get involved. So that's what I'm suggesting, that we
Thank you, Mr. Boone.
telling you how to get out and vote and get registered.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Brombeck, and then it is Mr. Whitcomb. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. I understand we have two newly elected council persons, William Hobbs and Ms. Sneed, I think her name is. Welcome to them both. As the old adage is, welcome to the shooting gallery because you're going to be awful busy. I just want to say again, and I'm going to sound like a broken record. Please, I know you've heard this a million times. Please use your conscience and please listen to the citizens of Hampton. All of us are not here to, how do I put this without, your jobs are not your jobs are very important, but you've got to listen to the citizens of Hampton. You've got to listen to the groups when a lot of us come up here and talk to you. Just use your common sense. Listen to us, and doors can be open, doors can be closed, things can be changed. When we have a problem, we'll come to you with our problems and listen with, just listen with decency and respect. It's not hard to do, but, this is the United States, and, we're a free democracy, so we just need to start acting like it and get out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. All right, Adrian, it's your turn. Mr. Whitcomb, good evening.
Good evening. I have this PowerPoint. I know there's no way I'm going to be able to go through this whole thing. But what I want to emphasize is that Fort Monroe as a national park has been popular all along. As you can see in polls in the Daily Press and the Virginia Pride last year, 87%, 92%, and this was implying all of Fort Monroe. Also, there were petitions with over 7,000 signatures. There were almost 3,000 people responded to the NPS last year, comments online or by mail. Close to 1,000 people were at the meetings. These are just a few of the photos that were taken at the meetings last year. As far as Fort Monroe, what could improve Fort Monroe National Monument? And it's our philosophy that doing the best for Fort Monroe National Monument will also be the best for Fort Monroe as a whole and for Hampton too. First of all, creating continuous experience for all visitors between the fortress and the natural areas, providing for a proper setting, opening up the views from the fortress to the bay and from the bay to the fortress, minimizing conflict by not having residents living in the middle of a national monument. They should live in the existing housing along in what we call the historic village, and maybe some in the North Gate area, but not in the Weary Quarter. And also to maintain the uniqueness of Fort Monroe. So what we emphasize is unity. As you can see, the Weary Apartments, these buildings are blocking the view, and this view was critical. Going back to the 1860s, you had to have an open view to see the enemy coming across the bay or up into Hampton Roads, either direction. So as this map shows, this illustration shows, there was open space to the east as well as to the north. there was very limited development, and it was on the west side. So, and this is a photo showing how close development is to the natural areas, to the fortress. I'm running out of time. I want to mention Mind Mixer. The best way to get to Mind Mixer is to go to our website first, Fort Monroe Citizens. There have been over 1,000 comments on Mind Mixer. The number one idea was to add the Weary Quarter to the National Monument. And we would like to see this concept, number two, with a green Weary. And please go to our website, fortmonroecitizens.org. You'll see that not only this presentation, but an expanded view with more slides and links to all kinds of things. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
You did a good job getting through that in 3 minutes, too, I have to say.
Thank you.
Good job. I want you to give a seminar to staff after the meeting, so we can get them to do their PowerPoints as fast.
Yes, I have.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you so much. That is Mr. Whitcomb was the last citizen I have signed up to speak. Would anyone else like to address council this evening? Yes, sir. If you'll give us your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Andreas Johnson from 1113 Mallory Street. I would like to address the council about the fluoridation of water in the city. I just recently found out information about the Harvard study, one of almost 1,000 studies that have been done recently about the fluoridation of water. The Harvard study suggests that fluoride is added to about 70% of U.S. public drinking water supply to prevent cavity and teeth decay. This benefit seems to be dubious at best. There's practically no difference between fluoridated areas and non-fluoridated areas in the country, or between this country and any other country that does not fluoridate. Yet we still fluoridate our waters. And there's also another suggestion by this study that fluoridation damages IQ levels as well as is detrimental to children and newborns. My suggestion to the council is to think about possibly taking this out because there seems to be no positive effects, only adverse effects. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who hasn't spoken would like to address council? All right. If not, then the public session is closed, and we will be back here at 7 o'clock.